Hey you guys, what's up? It's Chris with Can We Survive. Today I'd like to do a video where we discuss knives as it relates to adventuring in the forest, the desert, all these different places like that we do here in Can We Survive. There's a lot of different knife options, and I just really started to kind of expand my inventory of different knives, and some of it's for fun, some of it's for very good utility type use. I'd like to get a discussion going with you guys down in the comment section about your opinions, your beliefs, maybe what you use, maybe what you would like to use, and discuss some of the different aspects of these knives here. So what I have here is a few knives that would qualify for me as a good knife to take out with me no matter where I go, be it the forest, the desert, the mountains, whatever it is. But I'd like to go through and show you a little bit what I got here. So got some fun type knives. This is Tom Brown Tracker Mini. This is a mini version of the Tom Brown Tracker, kind of made famous in the movie The Hunted with Tommy Lee Jones. This is the mini version of it. I had an opportunity to pick this up on sale, and I find that it's neat and all, but as far as its usefulness for what I do, it might be useful for a variety of hunting tasks, but for what I do, I find it not really going to work for me. It's more of a novelty. If you try and baton with this, you're going to, this is so sharp up here, you're going to destroy your baton. Plus the way this edge is, I don't even know what to call that, a bevel, something. But it is a neat novelty, and there's nothing wrong with having a novelty type knife. This is another one I got. This was more of a tactical type purchase. I got this from Tops Knives. This is called the Lone Rider, and it's got some girth to it. More of like a combat knife, possibly one that you could wear like on body armor, where you pull this off and use it. So that's again, this second edge here is not sharpened, but you try and come down and baton with this thing, you're going to destroy it. And being that it's not that long of a blade, and it's kind of heavy for what it is, the utility aspects of this blade kind of cancel it out in regards to the type of knife I'm looking for. We're going to jump all the way up to the end here, and I'm going to show you. Here's a machete. This is a K-bar machete, and very specific place to have this. Jungle environment where you're going to be having to hack and slash your way through vines and small limbs. That's where this could really come into play. But as far as practical purposes, you're not going to be carrying this around with you. Even though it's not really heavy, its thickness is not too thick. It's not super heavy, but it's so long that if you tried, whether this sheath is terrible, but if you try to carry this around with you, it's just not going to happen. Very specific place for something like this. And I think that this would be augmented by another blade, even in a jungle environment, kind of like you would in a forest environment with an axe. The one thing that I don't have is what people consider a bushcraft style knife. Now, a bushcraft style knife, this is about as close as I have to one. This is a Mora. This knife stays in my fire starting kit. One, because it is very lightweight, it's very short, and it's got a very nice, very aggressive right angle on the top to strike my big fat ferro rod. So this works really good for that. But this is a Mora, and I recommend these to everybody because they're pretty cost effective. They're small enough for most all people to use, varying on your hand size, and they're good. They've got a nice grind on them. They work really well. But for me, you see the length of this blade. If I'm not carrying an axe or a hatchet or something, I'm not going to be batoning or processing wood much with this. But to make feather sticks with it, you can make feather sticks really well with this. You've got really good control of this knife. And like I said, the edge is good, as well as this one has its own ferro rod that sits right on the sheath which makes it a nice little combo. It has a couple different types of clips. So this is as close as I have to a Bushcraft style knife. When I say Bushcraft, I'm thinking somewhere between 3.5 and 5-inch blade. So this is something I got recently. This is a K-bar. This is a regular K-bar. And again, this was bought more for a tactical type purpose, more to go along with when I'm out shooting and things like that. So this knife here, but it's nice and light, it's got a nice handle, and it was pretty cost effective. And then you still have the ability to baton across a large type log there and actually do work with your different wood and stuff like that that you might have to prep for a fire or something, or a shelter. So it's not bad. But this, again, is kind of going to go into this category over here. So we're down to these 4. Now we can probably get rid of this one. This was one I saw. And the thing I love about this one is this is the Silent Hero. What sold me on this blade was this is my favorite actual design here. This drop point, this aggressive drop point, and this wide belly of a blade. So this knife here I saw, and you know, I had to have it. Now, after I got it, I made this custom handle for it. I've got orange liners in there. I've got the blue and black micarta that I've carved out, and it's pretty. It looks good. It's not. Didn't turn out to be the most comfortable. Got a nice big choil here. You can put your finger up and choke up on it. But what I found with this blade is this whole distance here between the end of the blade and the hand grip is just too big. It's too big of an area here. I feel like the blade is too far away from my hand. Even when I choke up like this, it doesn't feel right. Now, I didn't use this one that much, but when I did, it performed well with every task, including batoning, prepping wood, making shavings or feather sticks. All that stuff worked really good. But it doesn't have an aggressive right angle on the top to actually strike a ferrule rod. So that's kind of a downfall with that one. But this one still has the ability to do something in the future. The other thing is the sheath that comes with is not one of my favorite types. You know, when you pull this knife out and when you push it in, you can see it goes right up against this snap. And if you're not paying attention, you'll just literally cut the leather snap off just by either deploying or parking your knife back in its sheath. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes here. This is a BK10, I believe. This is a BK10. It's Becker BK10 made by K-Bar. So no problem there with a knot. There's a knot right here at the top. I actually enjoy batoning in prepping wood a lot more than using my axe, just because I feel more in control. You're here, you're kneeling on my wool blanket here. I'm able to control everything with my baton, whether they're really small and you're just going to tap your way through, looking to make something very small. And then from there, making some shavings. The length on this is about 5 inches. Now, Becker has a whole line of knives. For me, the handles are good. A lot of people don't like the handles, but for me, it fits my hand really good. This one is tough as nails. This was a clip point. I did some work to the clip point to make it look a little bit more like a drop point, as well as I filed the top here to give it a nice right angle. So when you want to strike a ferrule rod with it, it will strike the ferrule rod very aggressively without, you don't ever want to have to use your blade for the ferrule rod. And the sheath, this is the one it comes with. It's not bad. So this is definitely a good knife to use. It's not my first choice, but this one stays in my Jeep. This is my favorite knife. I've used this a ton through the years. Had this a couple of years. This is the Becker, same line, Becker BK7. 7-inch blade, okay? So just like the 10, I've taken an aggressive move to round off the clip point, because I just do not like the look of that, and I was very careful in doing it, keeping the blade cool, not to mess with the temper. I also took all of the coating off. It had almost like a Line-X style coating on this thing, and once I was done with my grinding and shaping, I blued the knife, and then I reprofiled the edge. This knife, for some reason, I've gotten ridiculously sharp, and it is maintaining that ridiculously sharp edge for a long time through a lot of different styles of wood and a lot of batoning. So that goes through nice and easy. I was able to find some micarta scales for this guy on Amazon, as well as a Kydex sheath for it. And I have one of these tech locks where in the summertime, I wear this in the small of my back just like this, right on the back of my belt here. So when I want to deploy it, I have the knife. But in the wintertime, that's not good because you have jackets and other clothes covering it. So there's some different options. Right now it's set up for the summertime. But the balance of this knife is really good. For me, it's really good. I know it's a little bit big for most people, especially when you look at it compared to some of these Bushcraft style length knives. You'll see the difference here. Lot bigger. Most people with a lot of skills can do everything they want with this size knife. But they augment this usually with some sort of axe or hatchet, these smaller knives. That's another thing you want to look at in combination. I will do that as well, but sometimes I'll augment some of these bigger knives with your everyday carry or your pocket knife. This is one that I use. This is a Surefire, skeletonized Surefire, nice and light. So that's in your pocket. This can do some of your smaller work, and this can do some of your bigger work. This is another one I use. This one's a little bit heavier. This is a 0 tolerance that I use with the old tiger stripe. I like both of those. So this is my favorite knife to date that I own. I don't have custom knives. I don't have really good Bushcraft knives. You know, this is what I have, and this is under $100. I think I paid around $75 to $79 for this thing, and then obviously added later on. Did some work to it myself and kind of made it my own, where I really enjoy this knife. So I saw this knife at my gun store. I don't know, it was like some of these other things. It was I need to have that. It may be a novelty, I don't know. So I went out and I tested it. Let's take a look at this thing. Starting off, it has got a nice, really nice Kydex sheet, leather here on the point. It's also got these 2 leather bands that attach a dangler loop to the knife, as well as this. So when you're wearing this, when you take this off, this Kydex holds the knife in, and this leather at the bottom will be against your leg. So it's allowed to move and dangle. You don't feel like it's binding up or anything. But we take a look at this bad boy. Now this is a Miller Brothers blades, and I found this big thing at my gun store. It's heavy. Okay, it's heavy. I can tell you the thickness right now. It's over 1/4 inch. It's over 1/4 inch. It's just over 1/4 inch thick. Now usually 1/4 inch thick is about the thickest you see knives. Those are the ones that people say they're like pry bars and stuff. So it's over 1/4 inch thick by a little bit. It's almost an 8-inch blade, and it's very sharp. I took this out and did some work with it in testing. Very controllable. the three knives that I really tested, Becker BK10 for its size, 5-inch, Becker BK7, 7-inch for its length, and then this one, this Miller Brothers custom made 8-inch thick. Here's what I found. And what I'm trying to weigh is all of the things, the weight of this thing. Now this thing, it's possible that you could replace your axe and carry this setup and be good to go. I don't ever like chopping with my knives, ever. But this one is so thick, so meaty, and so mean. And with this grip back here, you put your hand all the way to the back, right? Give yourself some more length. And the ability to chop with the weight of this knife will do a lot of the work. So when we're talking about chopping smaller trees, maybe 6-inch diameter and less. What I found with this knife here is the way that it is more of like a wedge almost. I found that before I actually lost the top edge of my blade, as I was batoning through wood, it would act like a wedge and boom, it would pop the wood apart. It would pop apart and I'd be done with it. But it didn't perform, even with this choil here, and I choked up on the knife, it didn't perform really good at making feather sticks. I could gouge my way through and make shavings, but it wasn't, because it's so thick. The edge is super sharp. It is super sharp. I don't have any paper here, but it will just cut through paper like a razor blade. But because of the angle of this and the wedge style, it didn't do a good job at making feather sticks. And it's heavy and it's big. So this knife I would classify as something really fun to use, but probably only when I'm have the Jeep close by and I don't want to be lugging this thing on a long hike. Something fun to use, but not a primary go-to style. We go back to the one knife that was my reigning favorite before, drum roll please, and still is, okay? So Becker BK7, just a little bit of customizing by me. This knife, when it goes through, I lose the top of the blade on batoning and the wood doesn't pop open, yet I still, I beat this knife by a long shot, and with the bigger one, I still have enough of a tip out there to where I can baton down and split that wood. But when you're talking about feather sticking with this and making small shavings, if you've got to do fine work, this knife here was doing a great job. Again, I put this edge on here and I strop this with leather to touch it up every now and again. It holds its edge really well. It's really balanced for me. I would love to have like a 5-inch or so bushcraft knife to see if I could hone my skills to be able to use a smaller knife rather than this bigger one. But for right now, with what I have, my knives that I own, this is still my reigning champion, the Becker BK7. What do you guys use? What do you guys think? Did it make sense what I talked about? Do any of you guys have some of those nice kind of custom-made specialty bushcraft knives? Do you guys use a Mora like this? I have 2 of these. This one stays in my fire kit, and one stays in my go bag, my bug out bag, my emergency bag that travels with me in whatever vehicle I'm in. Well, what do you guys use? What do you guys think? I'm starting to not necessarily collect knives on the scale that I collect firearms, and I'm trying to be smart about it. I've already got a collection of novelty stuff. I would really like to focus on some things that can work really well out in the forest, out in the desert, out on all these adventures we take on Can We Survive. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Please, let's see some interaction down in the comment section. We'll see you in the next video.